So I am currently at my favorite spot, which is the beach. It's like 10-15 minutes away from my house. But I wanted to come on here to share more about what happened in class and first day of training, which was phenomenal. With any training that you take, you get so much information. It can feel so overwhelming sometimes, and definitely draining by the end of the day. You'll definitely feel it. So definitely recommend, if you ever take a training, or to definitely take a break afterwards. I was reminded of that on Saturday, because after my training, which was about 5.5 hours or 4.5 hours, something like that, I went to my dad's gig, and it was super overwhelming and overstimulating, and I wish I had just taken a break first and allowed things to sort of digest and process within me before being open to receiving all that comes with going to events like his, because it's a lot of energy. It's a whole different vibe with all the music and the people, a lot going on. So I do wish I had stayed home that day and just kind of took care of myself, but that's okay. And we learned from it, and next time I have training, I will not be going to a gig afterwards. But some things I found super beautiful about the structure of this class. By the way, I'm taking a trauma-informed yoga teacher training. This is important to me in the aspect of mental health and wanting to provide safe spaces for my students and understand them from the level of, being trauma-informed and more, I don't know if sensitive is the right word, but just more knowledgeable on what it entails to be teaching these sort of things and holding space for one another, like for myself, but then also for my students, what that looks like and how I can best go about it within my own practice. And I figured this training would be super helpful in that. So some things I really enjoyed about this training is the way we set up class. There's going to be a lot of planes going by, so I'll pause for a little until they're away and then keep talking. That was Delta. Delta's flying in to the airport right now. Classroom expectations and conversation around boundaries, quiet time, and breaks and stuff like that, because we all learn and process in different ways. And for some of us that means journaling, for some of us that means like talking to another student and just kind of getting out our thoughts and really processing out loud. And also some days we show up differently. The way you show up in any aspect of your life, whether it's work, whether it's going to visit family, whether it's hanging out with friends. One day you might be just super happy and bubbly and full of energy, and other days you might be really low energy, and knowing that that's okay, and to meet yourself where you are and take care of yourself in those moments with where you are. So I thought it was super important to kind of set those expectations for the classroom, to respect each other in the way that we process things. And especially me being someone who actually really loves to journal, and I process things both through conversation and journaling, so it was nice to have both those integrated within the classroom aspect. And ways that showed up is that I also really liked, because of course I wanted to understand how this would work in class, so she would go over a couple slides. Like when we had presentations, there were like maybe 5 slides she'd go over. She'd talk about them, talk about what they meant, where she got her resources, all that sort of stuff. And then after all that information, it opened up time for questions and processing, allowing ourselves to take a digestive break, is as she called it, which I really liked that saying. So within that time, you were able to, if you saw that a peer seemed to also want to conversate to process everything that just happened, then you had some time to, meet up with that peer, talk about things. And if you wanted to maybe journal things out or kind of sit with them, you also had time for that. And we all respected each other in the ways in which we wanted to show up in those moments of digestive breaks. Some other things that we named and shared included knowing that it was going to be awkward. Sometimes, just like being human, you might make a mistake, you might stutter, you might say something wrong, whatever it may be. And just embracing those awkward moments. Non-disclosing. This was really interesting to me, because I have been in trainings before where it did not feel like these sorts of expectations and boundaries were kind of placed before we began, in terms of, so for non-disclosing in this practice means that we're not going to be openly sharing each other's like trauma out loud. So I wouldn't just start off a conversation being like, I went through this, and like go into all the details. That's not going to happen. Just out of respect of the other peers in class, and knowing that you have no idea what could trigger somebody else, sort of thing. But then also, like, you don't have to share your trauma to learn what it's like to be a trauma-informed yoga teacher. Same same thing with being in classroom settings with clients, whatever it may be. You don't need to share whatever you've been through to a client or a student to understand them or have them understand you. There are other ways to go about it. And I thought that was super important because I found that in classroom settings I've been in before, when we didn't have that and people started sharing their trauma, like went on little tangents, and there's nothing wrong with sharing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with sharing. I just think that sometimes it is important to set a boundary or sort of almost like those trigger warnings, kind of give a little like heads up before just like dumping trauma on people. And so I found it interesting because I have been in classroom settings before where we did happen to go on little tangents or people started sharing things they've been through, how they related to each other, whatever, which love holding space for people. Obviously, that's literally what my whole career is about. But I think what a line we almost crossed and started teetering on was trauma bonding. And that's when things can get a little bit dicey. And I feel like it could affect a lot of the relationships we had with each other. With that, assumptions can also be made, and we don't want to assume things about one another as a way of like affecting how we interact or talk with each other or understand each other. Yeah, I think those are the main things I sort of took away from the different expectations. There are more, and we're going to go over them more, and so I'll share more as we go, but those are some really big ones I liked. And then something else, when we started getting into the presentation part of things, let me back up. The structure of the first class was we came together, we had broken out into little groups, and we had like a topic to go over and kind of like broke out into groups to like talk about that thing, and then we'd share as a class. It was really awesome. Just a way to get to know each other. We're doing the whole name thing and all that sort of stuff. It was great. Then after that is when she did her presentation, which is like lecture style, I guess, but with the little breaks in between to give us time to digest, journal, process, whatever it needed to be. We also had breaks for water and a dinner break. Yeah. So it was very well organized, and I really liked the structure of class. So that was just a preface what day one was like. During presentation, I'm now fast forwarding presentation time. One of the big things we talked about that I really liked, because this is a very popular conversation topic, is when people use the phrase big T trauma and little t trauma. I thought that was so interesting and a really profound conversation we had, because what we pretty much talked about is we're trying to get away from saying big T and little t trauma and just calling it trauma, like period. And I really liked this because I also have fallen into the category of then using that to be in comparison, because when you label something as big versus little, you're now comparing something you went through to somebody else's and whether one was bigger or more important or more valued than the other. And I don't think that's an appropriate thing to say or do, because we all, or most people who have been through trauma, it's valid no matter how small or big that trauma was, you know, like trauma is trauma, okay? So I really like that we kind of define that, getting away from those labels of big versus little. I think I did a lot of writing, as you can see. That's what I'm like, this is my notebook. But I just said this version plays deeply into the comparison, and it can be freeing to not categorize trauma. And I thought that was just super awesome. And I just kind of wrote a little reflection blurb on what that meant to me and how that impacted me, that phrase. We talked a lot about the nervous system and how that affects trauma and all that sort of stuff, and ways that we as practitioners and teachers, leaders, whatever you want to call yourself, on how we can help our students and clients with their nervous system. Oh, something else that I thought was interesting is we got into a conversation on like choice-based teaching, and how the point of what we're doing is to help people figure out how to get back to themselves, help them learn to regulate themselves and figure out their own choices in which to appropriately take care of themselves within the classroom space, but then also outside of the classroom space when we're not like with them to guide them. And I thought that was important in just knowing like our purpose and our role, because, you know, we're not here to fix people per se. We're really just here to guide you and help you find tools that help you yourself in gaining confidence in those tools and you being capable of doing them alone, you know, and that showing up within your practice and kind of like trusting your own self and your own body is super important. We had like conversations around those, and it was really nice. I liked that conversation. a lot of reflection and processing. At the very end, we talked about how to incorporate and include collaboration and clarity in your work. And I kind of shared that for me, one way I incorporate collaboration in my work is when it comes to different variations of shapes and poses that we take. What I actually have learned, because something that I have learned as like a teacher, how do you teach to a class that has both beginners and well-seasoned teachers within it? Because I know that with beginners, I've learned they enjoy having a demo, which makes sense, because if you don't know how to do a shape or a pose, it's good when the teacher actually shows you it, because I know even for me as a beginner, I really enjoyed that. And even now, I enjoy when a teacher kind of shows what they're talking about sometimes. But someone who this is their daily practice and they know when you call out a certain pose, how to get into it and what works for them and all that sort of stuff. So what I started doing that I thought was super important is I started incorporating the variations in the sequence. And so I don't do this every single time, but most of the time, for instance, the example I gave was when I'm doing like a lunge sequence. I'll actually incorporate for the first round of the flow is the variation with the knee down, and then the second round has the variation with the knee up, but it gives opportunity for those who want to have their knee down that day. Whether you're a beginner or not, you could just be having some sort of, knee soreness or issues, whatever it may be. The opportunity to have the knee down and know exactly what it'll look like in the flow. So it gives you choice and option, but also with it being incorporated in the sequence already. So there's no kind of fear of being called out in some sort of way of like whether or not you're doing one version versus the other. It's just like whatever you feel today, let that be enough. And if that is the knee down, let the knee be down. And if it's the knee up, let it be knee up. So it kind of takes away the whole like I have to stop and demo, and just puts it right in the sequence and we just keep flowing through it, which I really like. And so far, with the classes that I've taught over this past year and the feedback I've gotten from students is they really actually appreciate that and enjoy my classes that are styled that way. So that is what I've learned. That all being said, I absolutely love this training so far. I cannot wait to learn more. I'm happy to be back in the classroom. I'm happy to be back in community, and I just can't wait to learn. I'm excited about learning, and that feels really good to be able to say that and feel that deeply. So y'all will just be along for the journey. Of course, I'm going to record everything, vlog everything for you. So I definitely can't record while we're like literally in class learning. I can just do those little clips like you guys saw in the beginning of like me setting up like my mat set up and all that sort of stuff. But when class begins, phone is put away. So you'll get to see that sort of stuff. And then after, I'll have these little debriefs of like what we went over, some things that I, found intriguing or learned or whatever it may be. Delta. Lastly, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you found it in any way helpful, if you resonated, if you're also in this process going through these trainings, if you've already gone through them, maybe you can share that in the comments. But I'm so excited for this journey, and there's so much more to come, so many exciting things about to happen that I can't wait to share with you guys. And I just want you to have a great rest of your day or your evening whenever you're watching this, and always be kind to yourself and kind to others. Spread love, spread peace. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.